Today we're going to be making holiday candle centerpieces. They involve a design dish with soaked floral foam. It also is going to be finished off with a candle. So I've got a candle holder that I'll be placing in the foam, as well as you'll get a choice of your own color of a taper candle. And then we're going to be using a variety of plant material. I'll get to that in a moment once we get our vessel set up. So a centerpiece is meant to be displayed at the center of a table where a gathering of people is going to be around. So this is an all sides arrangement. We want our balance and our form to be as symmetrical and even as possible. That way, no matter where you are seated at the table, you are still viewing the same thing and it's still beautiful and of quality. So be aware of that. I am building mine today on a Lazy Susan. We have a few of these in class, so feel free to use one. If nothing else, I would just make sure you're rotating. And I do think that standing to build this one is best. When you're seated, especially working with the floral foam, you're gonna be noticing what's right in front of you, but it's hard to see the top and all sides from a seated position. So I like to design standing. Our very first step, if you are gonna be making this up later or recreating this at home, you definitely wanna soak your floral foam for a minimum 5 to 10 minutes. I like to do it longer. I put this in this morning. I'm not even designing now until the end of the day. So it's had hours to soak in that foam. Or that water. Also in the water, I put dissolved floral food, so that way this is a hydrated fertilizer necessarily for my plants. It's gonna give it the best lifespan possible. I'm gonna take the floral foam. There's pegs in this design dish. It's meant to perfectly fit this guy, and I'm gonna rest it and sink it into there, making sure that it's all the way down to the base. Obviously, this piece of floral foam is way too large for this one arrangement, so I need to cut it. I'm gonna use a basic butter knife to do that. And what I would like to do is I don't want to cut it right at the edge of the design dish. If I do that, it's going to be clean and everything, but then when I go to put in my plant material, I can't put anything sideways. I can't put anything angled down. I have nothing to go into. It's all resting in the dish itself. So I actually want to rest it about 1 inch above the top of the container. That way I have something to go into for side pieces, to have a downward drooping angle. It's going to make the piece look way better. So the cool thing with floral foam is most of them have guides for you to cut. And with this design dish, the way it perfectly fits is if I cut on this first line, these are thirds of the brick, it should fit perfectly. So if you're really worried about getting a straight edge, aim for this line. If nothing else, you can make a few marks to yourself to help you, and then you'll get it as evenly as possible. In the end, if you don't cut it perfectly straight, if it's a little wobbly, it'll be okay. It's gonna get covered up with plant material anyway, but do your best to get it above the edge of the container about 1 inch. All right, this is not trash. This is usable by somebody else. So go ahead and put it back in the water or gift it to one of your classmates. This is what we're gonna work with, but we have one more step to do before we work with plants, and that is sink our candle holder in. So this is where the candle itself is going to rest when we're done, but it's gonna be really hard to place this once I've covered everything up with plant material. So I wanna do this first. It has a spike at the end, and then it has this flat piece. I want to push it into the foam all the way down so that this flat piece is resting on the top of my foam. Once I press it, it's gonna sink into my foam. That hole is permanent. We can only make it bigger. We can't take it back. So visualize where you wanna put this. Because I'm only doing one, I wanna put it in the center of my foam. So I'm gonna put a little hole and check, make sure that I'm in the right spot. And then when I know I'm good, I'm gonna go ahead and sink it all the way down so that this flat part rests at the top of the foam. I could force it and keep pressing further. I don't wanna do that. I don't wanna damage the foam. I want this to just rest right there with the top of it. The actual candle is gonna go in last. I'm gonna make that decision after I've done the whole arrangement, but now I can place stuff around it and hide this plastic piece way easier than if I waited till the end to kind of shove this in there. It's still doable if you forget and have to do it that way, but it's just better this way. All right, we're gonna be working with our greenery. This is the same greenery we've been using on our Christmas wreaths, our swags. It's definitely the season of evergreen. So we have fir, we have cedar, we might have some juniper in that mixed box, but you've got a variety of greens. You might even be cutting off of a bough. You might be pulling pieces that are pre-trimmed for you out of the bags. Whatever floats your boat, you're gonna need some pieces of greenery. I don't really have a number for you because you do have some choice to make. But what I do want you to keep in mind is a variety of greens looks way better, just like a variety of flowers. So I want you to be mixing fir and cedar, have some color textural differences. You really just need 4 pieces right now to begin. What our first step is going to be is to set our width and our length. Think of it as you're setting your boundaries to color in your page. We want to do the same thing with this greenery. There's a couple of things you need to know before you place your greenery. We definitely want naked stems in the foam. This has lots of needles. We do want to strip them off so we get down to a naked stem. If I shove all of this into the foam, it's going to make a much larger hole than we need, and it'll be fine for a couple hours, but as the foam starts to get dehydrated by the plant sucking up that water, this will become really, really loose because we only really need this guy in there, not all of that surrounding space. And so as it shrinks, it's gonna have a lot of airspace. So you're gonna have stuff fall out. It's not gonna look as good. We also only need to go into the foam about a 1/2 inch. We don't need to shove a lot in there. Eventually, this is gonna get really covered up with plant material of both flowers and greenery. So I don't wanna be putting stuff super duper in there because then I'm gonna be fighting it. I'm gonna be hitting stems on stems as I keep going. I really only want a little bit going into the foam. Then I need you guys to think about where are you going to take this and display it. If you're gonna take it home and you guys are hosting a holiday dinner and you know that that table is gonna get extended and you have 10+ people coming over, you should go bigger. You should make something more oblong in shape. If you are not hosting anything, if this is going home and it's just gonna go on an entry table or somewhere in the kitchen, then I would maybe keep it more circular and tighter to the container size. So remember that scale and proportion is all about where is it going? What's the end result going to be? Whatever that is, think about it, and then we're taking 4 pieces of greenery as our starting point to set those boundaries. I'm gonna put them in both sides of the foam this way for my length, and then I'll do the same thing on this for the width. These 2 should match, these 2 should match. They don't all need to match if I want that oblong shape. I can stretch it out. I could even make it diamondy if I wanted to really have a straight, harsh line. But these 2 ends should match and these 2 ends should match. We're doing an all sides arrangement. So go ahead and figure out what that's gonna be like for you. I am gonna do a somewhat smaller one just because I don't think I am having a large gathering this year. I'll probably just take this to my mom's house and give it to her as a gift. But you do you. So we're going in the sides just like that. And then I do want a little bit of an oblong, so I'm gonna make these 2 pieces shorter. Maybe even a little bit more. All right, so I have my starting point. I have my length, I have my width, I have the foam and the candle holder in there. Now I get to play with the shape and the design. So I'm gonna switch gears for a moment and go to flowers. We're gonna do our overall shape. Then we're gonna come back to greenery and I'm gonna use a variety to fill in the rest of this shape. We're gonna actually connect it down here, but we're also gonna use greenery on top to blend it. It'll look really weird if all you have on the top are colorful flowers and all the greenery is down here. It looks very much like a separate, like a skirt of things and a shirt. We don't want that. We want the 2 to be married, all right? Flower-wise today, you are going to be working with 4 carnations. You choose if you wanna work with all the same color or if you wanna blend different ones out of the bucket. You're gonna be getting 2 mini carnations. I don't have those today to film with, but I am gonna use these pomps. They're virtually the same purpose. It's a secondary flower, has multiple blooms on a stem. I'm gonna chop these up into pieces, so the perspective will be the same. The size is roughly about the same as well. And then you do get baby's breath as your filler. So main, secondary, filler. We're gonna start with our main. What our goal today with the main flower is with our candle holder being in the middle, I want to create an X on the top of the foam with those carnations. So basically the 4 corners are going to have a carnation. The difference that I really want you to pay attention to in order to help us with our shape is I'm not gonna be putting those in straight up and down. I'm gonna be putting them in at an angle. And then where this is what's gonna help me create the shape. So I need to be aware of that. This is still too tall because it's at an edge. I have my starting point, I'm rising, but the candle is the tallest point in the middle. And then I'll descend and I'll descend. So we're trying to have that arc dome shape. We've been doing that a couple of different times in class. You're gonna repeat that today with these carnations. So keep in mind when you're putting them in that this is not the tallest point yet, but it is the tallest point as far as flowers go, but it's not the tallest part of your arrangement. If you have them way up here, then the candle's gonna look weird, this is gonna look weird, the balance will be off. This is the middle, basically, size-wise. So I'm gonna go ahead and figure out my height, and then I'm gonna mimic that throughout all four, because they're all in the same place of the arrangement, they're just in different locations. So still at an angle, still the same size as that first one. And I'm making my X so that all four corners are covered in carnations at roughly the same height. Our main flowers are done. They're all at the same perspective. Remember, the candle is going to be the tallest point. So I have low, medium, high. I have this arc that I'm going with. The secondary flowers are gonna really help emphasize that shape and give us the connection from here to here, but also here to the candle. So our first job with our secondary flowers is to chop them up into individual usable pieces. We've been doing this a lot. Just like the greenery boughs. From the main stem, I'm gonna trim off all of these pieces as much as possible into their individual usable stuff so that I can place them throughout the arrangement. When you get up here to the top, if you would rather keep these together and have a longer stem this way, you could chop it that way. I think because it's a smaller arrangement, like shorter wise on the scale, I'm just gonna chop everything up individually. So from the main stem, cut them off. And then once you're using them, you can trim them further if you want shorter stems, but at least you have something to work with. So these two stems of secondary flowers become quite a few pieces. I probably have, I don't know, close to 15 or so. We don't want the leaves. All right. We're gonna place these still on the top of the foam, but if you do have enough, you can start to come down on the sides if you'd like to. But nothing should be taller than the carnations. We're working our way. We're trying to do that domey shape. All right. So I'm gonna start first by trying to connect here to here. And remember, we're trying to go for symmetry, so whatever I do to one side, I gotta recreate on the other as best I can. You know, you might not have even amounts of all of your materials, so do what you can. I'm then gonna start to go taller to try to help that arc. Connecting everything as we go. Trying to camouflage the foam as we go. Working mostly on the top, but I am starting to put stuff in the sides and angles because I do have quite a bit to work with. And then in the end, if you still have a few pieces left over and you're like, I don't know where to put these, don't throw them away yet. Let's move on to the rest of our greens. And you might find when you're done that you're like, oh, I kind of covered up something, I want to put it back. You might end up using these later. Right. We also want to try to hide the plastic of that candle holder. So don't be afraid to sink a couple down in there. I'm gonna save these three for the end. I might come back to those, so we'll save those for now. So far we have a pretty decent shape. Our next step is gonna be to use more greenery, and this is the part where I definitely wanna change up the type of greenery I'm using. We are going to make sure that we connect down on the side so we fill in the shape, because right now these are our boundaries. We're not gonna go past these, but we do need to put greenery in the rest of the sides to fill that in. But then I'm also camouflaging the rest of the foam. So I am putting some pieces up top. Up top, it's really hard to use stuff like noble fir because of the top side underside situation. You're gonna see the bad side in some cases, but it's not bad to use if it's in a really tight spot between flowers to separate them, that's okay. Sometimes that frosty look is good. You might wanna focus on using the cedar up top where it's floppy and can be more of like a hanging, totally up to you, but we're gonna come in with some more greenery and filler it. We still have filler flowers to go. We didn't use those yet, so keep that in mind. We're gonna come back to that at the very, very end. stationary trimming. Like if I want to use this guy, but I trim these guys off the side, these little guys come in handy to fill in those spots. Just keep that in mind. Don't ever throw anything away until you're totally done. You might end up wanting it. Makes life easier than rather than cutting a whole new thing from a bough. I think the cedar is very forgiving because it's nice and floppy. So it can kind of go in here as a wispy stem, kind of whimsical. And again, you're not going for complete coverage of the foam. That would take a bazillion pieces. You're going for camouflage. And luckily a lot of this is green, so that helps with that. I'm gonna stop for now. I can always come back to it. I'm gonna switch gears to my filler flowers. These are really gonna come in clutch to help you blend the top and the bottom. If you look at it right now, it's coming together, it's nice and full, but it's very obvious that all the color is up top, all of the greenery is down below. I have a few pieces of the pomps in on the sides, but not very many. Baby's breath, you have a whole stem of it. Do you need to use all of it? No. You might want to use it and then thin it out on the design itself. Maybe this piece is great, but you want to thin it out. This is going to help you blend the color. You literally can stick this teeny tiny stem of baby's breath wherever you want. It can go into the greenery, it can go into the flowers, it can help hide the candle holder. It's really easy to place, and it will really help it all come together. And it kind of looks like snow falling down on the ground, so that's really helpful. So I'm just gonna take a few sprigs of it, start to place it throughout. Remember, we're trying to keep it balanced because it's a round centerpiece for everybody at the table to see. So whatever I put on one side, I wanna redo on the same perspective on the other side. I'm happy with that for now. So now comes finishing touches. We have the arrangement itself is complete. It's the design factor and just your personal preference, how big you went. I just need to fluff this up and make it look good. So this is maybe where you ask a neighbor to take a look at your piece. This is definitely where you want to get a different perspective if you haven't gotten yet. So if you haven't been rotating, now is the time to do that. If you've been seated, maybe stand. If you've been standing, maybe sit. It's time for you to really look for the holes. So I've already noticed right here, I've got a hole where I need to put some greenery. If I put more filler, it's just gonna be white on white on white. So I'm gonna get some greenery. You wanna make sure that the foam is camouflaged, A, and then that your design is balanced. So you're looking for holes, but you're also looking for, is there anywhere that's just a little bit like weighted heavy that I didn't do on the same side? Pieces there. Whatever you need to do to complete your design. And then in the end, it's time to choose your candle. I'm gonna go with gray today. This is definitely too red for me. I like to take it out of the wrapper for the picture. The wrapper just doesn't look super cute. I went with dripless, smokeless candles. That way, if anybody's got asthma, hopefully it doesn't set them off. They're not scented either. And then the dripless just helps it not be super messy. And I believe these are about an 8 to 10 hour burn time. So it should last the whole day if you're doing like a dinner or for something for the holidays. If nothing else, you don't have to light it. It still looks good just as a stationary item, but it helps kind of complete the look and the shape. And so there is my completed design. All right, I hope you guys had a good time and that you enjoy your piece, enjoy the holidays, and I'm here to help you as needed. So I'll see you guys on the next one.